It's my first time taking a trip to a hot spring with a man. I feel a bit uneasy, but you need to entertain me. The boss, who usually dumps all the work on me and constantly complains, is now smiling at me. My boss smiles at me, but it feels like a stranger. She is acting like we're meeting for the first time. I'm not used to going on trips to hot spring with a woman, but I'll do my best to make it enjoyable for you. Saying that, my face turned red. Why did I end up coming on this hot spring trip with my boss? There was a particular reason I was unaware of until today. My name is Mike. I'm 24 and work in the kitchen of a major food chain. My dad ran a sushi bar for many years. However, a few years before I was about to graduate from culinary school, my dad collapsed from overworking. He had to take a long break for recovery, and he ended up closing the sushi bar he had run for years. I'll take over Dad's business once I graduate from culinary school. I got my chef's license in college and went to train in your restaurant. I wanted to continue the business my dad built, so I begged him. But my dad disagreed. I can't trust you with my business when you have no work experience. Get a job elsewhere first and learn how to behave professionally. Working in a family business can lead to taking things for granted. Realizing the naivety of my thoughts after what my dad said, I acknowledged my mistake. But I had earned my chef's license in culinary school with the goal of becoming a chef like my dad. When my dad refused to let me take over, I felt lost about what kind of job I really wanted. A friend from culinary school told me, "You know the restaurant we always go to? They're hiring and have amazing pay and training programs. They have many locations, and you can choose one close to home." My friend introduced me to the job listing of the major food chain, which is where I currently work. The pay is indeed much better than other job offers, and they even offer training programs abroad. Impressed with the unexpected benefits, I took the interview and was hired. It's been 3 years since I joined as a fresh graduate. I've been working hard to support my parents. However, there was one major problem at work. That was the bad relationship with my immediate boss. My boss, Arya, is the precious only daughter of the company's CEO. She's very strict at work, always pushing tasks onto me and constantly nitpicking. What's with this presentation? It's nothing like the picture. Customers will complain about this misleading photo. What's with this salty pasta? Did you mess up the seasoning? This is toxic. She would then throw away the dish I prepared. Yet, she never does any cooking herself and only chats with regular customers. I'm busy with customer service, so I'll leave all the cooking to you. She would leave all the kitchen tasks to me. Being alone and trying to prepare dishes for many customers at once can get overwhelming. My boss would come unexpectedly to check for even the smallest mistakes. Not just me, she would do the same with newcomers who had only been with the company for a few months. As a result, I've seen about 15 chefs resign in the past 3 years. If it wasn't for such a bossy manager, we wouldn't be struggling with staff shortages. I strongly disliked my boss, who was unreasonable and always complaining. On top of that, I couldn't stand the worsening staff shortage because of her. I have to prepare dishes for 20 customers all by myself. Her delegation of tasks is seriously messed up. Thankfully, I live with my parents, so I have them to vent my frustrations to. When the stress and fatigue from work build up, I would vent to my parents and they would listen. My dad would silently nod while my mom would say, "That sounds tough." But I noticed a complex look on their faces whenever they listened to my complaints, a mix of concern and sadness. Maybe they're tired of my constant complaints. Did I get carried away? I noticed the look on my parents' faces and reflected on my actions. I started to hold back on my complaints to them. A few months passed, and then my birthday came. "Thanks for always working hard. Every once in a while, you should take some time off," my mom said. handing me a spa voucher. "Hut, only for one person. Aren't we going as a family?" I was surprised, but my mom, with a hesitant look on her face, said, "Ever since your dad collapsed, he hasn't been eating much, right? It's risky for him to go to a hot spring because he might faint." Indeed, since my dad collapsed from exhaustion a few years back, he had lost a lot of weight from not eating much. His blood pressure and pulse weren't stable, and he was under the care of his primary doctor for his arrhythmia. Taking him on a spa trip would indeed be risky. I mean, we don't have to go to a hot spring. Aren't these things supposed to be for the whole family? I had a slight complaint towards my mom, but considering my dad's condition, I couldn't voice it. "Well, maybe going alone once in a while isn't a bad idea, thanks, I'll enjoy it." I smiled at my mom, who looked relieved and said, "I'm glad you liked it." The following month, during the long weekend, I went to the spa alone with the voucher my mom had given me. As soon as I arrived at the spa hotel, there was a woman arguing with the receptionist in the lobby. "There's no way my reservation isn't in. Isn't this a mistake on your part? Please check properly." I recognized the assertive voice of the woman. It was the same voice of my boss I hear at work. "Arya, what are you doing here?" I was surprised to see my boss, but she approached me aggressively. "I was supposed to meet my parents here, but there's no reservation under their name. Why are you here?" My boss seemed quite furious and lashed out at me. "Calm down," I said, handing my voucher to the receptionist. "We've been expecting you, sir. You have a reservation in the same room with this lady." The receptionist, with a relieved expression, handed me a key to a room. "Wait a minute, I came alone. I'd like separate rooms, please." I hastily conveyed this, but the receptionist showed me the reservation form and said, "But you clearly reserved a shared room." My boss, who had been assertive a little while ago, looked as if she was about to panic. I decided to head to our room and discuss the situation further with my boss. As soon as we entered the room, she called the CEO. "Dad, what's going on? I wasn't told I'd be sharing a room with a subordinate." She seemed upset with the CEO for a while, but after hearing some explanation, she looked dejected. "So that's what it was. You could have told me directly." Then she got off the phone with the CEO. And the boss, looking downcast, explained the situation to me. Actually, for a while now, Mike had mentioned that he would invite his childhood friend, a sushi chef, to add sushi and sashimi to our restaurant's special menu. She struggled to find her words. I didn't understand what he meant when he said, "Don't be too hard on your subordinate. He's an important business partner and you're betrothed." Now I finally get it. I can't believe I'm engaged to you. I calmly responded. "I hadn't heard about you being my fiancée either, but my dad is indeed a sushi chef." There was an awkward silence between us. Unable to bear it any longer, I called my dad. "Hello, Dad, what's this about sharing a room with my boss? Please explain." I asked in a voice close to tears, and my dad chuckled and replied, "I knew you two weren't getting along. I couldn't bring myself to tell you she's your fiancée. Is it true about the engagement?" I was taken aback, and my dad proudly explained. "Her dad and I have been friends since childhood. It's hard for me to work alone, so he's helping expand my sushi and sashimi dishes to his restaurant chain." As I was lost for words, he continued with enthusiasm. "Choosing to work at your fiancé's company without me telling you is remarkable. Isn't it destiny? You and Arya were close in preschool. If you two are arguing at work, just reconcile." He hung up after leaving me with those words. I tried to recall the distant past, feeling bewildered. Come to think of it, I think I had a girlfriend back in preschool. Our parents were close friends from way back. Did they promise to set us up as childhood sweethearts? I can hardly remember, as I was so young. Then, why haven't we met since preschool? I was asked this by my boss, and it made me reminisce about the past. That's right. Around the time I started elementary school, my dad's restaurant started struggling. He had to take on some debt for a while. Then, my boss suddenly looked up, surprised. I remember that my dad's restaurant also faced troubles when I was in elementary school. Him copying another store's menu became a big problem. We both looked at each other and burst out laughing. So we both got busy helping our family businesses and just grew up without seeing each other. My dad, even being a businessman, has always been a bit clumsy with things like that. He could have just told me what was going on. We both laughed at how our parents handled things. It's my first time on a hot springs trip with a man. I'm a bit nervous. Will you make it enjoyable for me? Usually, she dumps all the work on me and complains, but now my boss was smiling at me. She looked like a complete stranger, not the boss I knew. Blushing and fidgeting, looking incredibly adorable. I'm not used to going on trips to a hot spring with a lady, but I'll do my best to make it enjoyable. We decided to make the most of our unexpected hot springs trip. Seeing her private, cute, and clingy side made me nervous. And I was taken aback by her appearance in her robe. I couldn't tell just from working with her, but she had a slim figure with large breasts. She looked incredibly beautiful. Her unexpected sides kept making my heart race. Returning home from the trip, our fathers were arguing. It can't be helped. The kids just don't get along. I waited 3 years for my son to get used to his job, but they just aren't getting close. You should have explained the situation before sending them on a trip. What if that made their relationship worse? You sent your daughter to, without explaining, right? It's the same. Seeing me, my dad said, "How was it? Did you enjoy the hot springs?" "Sorry, Mike, for sending you without any explanation." Ara's dad was like, "I'll make sure to tell my daughter properly, so it's okay to let the two of them go to a spa, you know." My dad looked at the CEO, who awkwardly said, "I wanted to tell my daughter about the arranged marriage, but couldn't bring myself to do it when she was right there." In the end, neither father could explain to us, and the day of the hot springs trip just arrived. "Mike, I'm sorry. I knew you two didn't get along, but I wanted our families to be close again. Plus, I wanted our businesses to prosper by joining forces." Being apologized to by the CEO made me feel uneasy. "It's fine. It was unexpected, but I had a good time." As I said that, my boss stepped forward. "You guys have such a clumsy way of communicating. Important things should be explained to the person directly involved, right? I'm sorry for being so awkward." The CEO bowed his head, and my boss blushed and said, "Well, it's okay. The setup was messy, but it was nice to have a heart-to-heart conversation with my subordinate. So, usually when you dump work on me and nag, it's just because you care about me, right? They say we tend to tease the ones we like." Before I could finish, she covered my mouth and said, "Idiot. I told you to keep what we talked about in the hot springs a secret." Seeing us, our fathers felt relieved. Who would have thought my fiancé would be in the company I joined? How would college me react if he knew about this through time travel? But the biggest surprise was finding out that my boss, whom I thought disliked me, actually had feelings for me. "If we hadn't gone on that hot springs trip, I might have never understood your feelings," I said, and she replied with a teasing smile. "And I might have never confessed my feelings to you." We laughed, now dating as a couple. She's still strict at work, sometimes unreasonable, and dumps a lot of work on me. But if all that is out of love, I feel like I can handle anything. "I wonder if after we get married, will you still be strict about the cooking?" I muttered, and she replied with a stern face, "Did you say something? We're at work now, you know." "Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry," I responded with enthusiasm, and am hard at work today as well. Even during work, I daydream about marrying her and can't help but grin to myself, but that's a secret from her. Well, she might actually have a hunch that I'm thinking of proposing. So, what did you think? Subscribing to the channel would really boost my motivation. See you in the next video.